into another Stacks on Stacks. You got me, Derek, from the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast, and Rumboys Robbie. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, my friend. I'm doing good, doing great, doing well. How are you?
I can't complain. A little sleep deprived, but still rocking and rolling and doing well. So cannot complain.
I like it. I'm excited to talk some sports. Make sure that you guys get out there and download the Stacks app if you want to talk. Whether it's fantasy, gambling, what else? Just any debate, any topics, make content with athletes, so on and so forth. Get on over to the Stacks app, download the Stacks app. Link is in the description, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the like button.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Get it. So great show coming to you this afternoon here. And we've got topics kind of ranging all over the place, right? We've got some football topics. We've got just general fandom coming at you. We've got fantasy football. We've got some basketball, all sorts of good stuff here. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and we'll get this thing kicked off nice and easy here with some news that broke coming out of Tampa Bay a little while ago.
I just finished wrapping an interview with ESPN reporter Michael Rothstein. I asked him how he felt Tom Brady's return impacted the Falcons' decision to trade Matt Ryan and if it expedited the process, etc.
NFC is up for grabs, but I think Tom Brady and Tampa Bay is in that number one slot.
I don't think that Tom Brady's return necessarily impacted the Falcons' decision.
The whole NFC South thought the division was wide open.
It makes Tampa Bay a Super Bowl contender.
At this point, Tom Brady will probably win the next 5 Super Bowls.
I think they're going to trade him no matter what.
I think it impacted their decision a little more than people are thinking.
My thought process was after the failed pursuit of Deshaun Watson, they had to decide whether they were going to trade Matt Ryan or not. And I think Arthur Smith realized that his ticking time bomb starts as soon as that trade happens.
Tom Brady for president.
Tom Brady for president, indeed.
Gosh. Well, I'll let you take this one first because I kind of responded on that. How do you feel, bro? Shout out to Andrew Wiley, by the way, too.
Absolutely. This is one of those that again, I've said it before, and I think I've said it even on this show that very rarely do you see athletes, especially top end elite athletes, the best of the best at their profession, retire while they've still got gas in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely do you see it, right? Like, especially in football. Football, you tend to see the game retire you instead of players retire on the game. Like that, very rarely does it happen where somebody truly walks away coming in with a, MVP type of performance and then just riding off into the sunset. Typically, we've seen guys go out there and win a Super Bowl and then walk away from it. Guys like John Elway and Peyton Manning, to name a few that won it at the,
See what you did there.
Yep. At the high end of that and then walking away. But when it's all said and done, right? Like both of those guys, you could tell walking through that last season that they were, that they didn't really have anything left in the gas tank and they kind of got over the finish line, but there wasn't enough for future seasons there.
Okay. So first off, notice that you dropped 2 Broncos.
You betcha I did.
Yeah. Secondly, the other thing that I'd like to throw out there, Tom Brady, you should have just kept your ass retired. The NFL was becoming a great place. It's still a great place, but it was becoming a great place. How far do you? I mean, you'll definitely be in the playoffs because, and I don't think that Tom Brady's return forced Atlanta to have to pull the trigger on moving Matt Ryan out. Like I said in the tape on Stacks app, which Maddie has a great interview. We got that coming out on the editing floor over on 32-bit. So make sure you guys go support her. Check out her interview with the Atlanta Falcons beat writer. But I felt like they were going to do this eventually, anyways. They were eventually going to blow things the fuck up, anyways. Strap some C4 on it. Let's get the claymores and make a hole. And that's exactly what they did. Ridley not coming back, if anything, had more of an effect. I don't think that's what forced Matt Ryan out. Now, on the Tom Brady side of things, it's their division now. Who's going to compete with you? The Aints. Like, no, we're not worried about the Saints. We're not worried about the Falcons. What was that other team they got down there? I'm drawing a blank at the moment. Oh gosh, Carolina.
Yep.
Carolina ain't doing jack shit.
So I mean, it's Tom Brady in a division full of teams that need quarterbacks at this point, right? Like, you're right. It's absolutely that Tom Brady's not. It's their division to win, things like that. And again, I think I agree with the fact that the Falcons needed to move on and they needed to do something because they weren't going to be able to compete. Really, they'd be tough to compete for playoff contention with the roster that they've got now with Matt Ryan and the years that he's got left, right? Add the Calvin Ridley into it as well. You're now down an elite wide receiver in the league, and now you've got to try and figure that out on top of it. Kyle Pitt's still trying to grow into his own, and it's still probably another year out before he really starts taking yet that other step forward that we would expect him to see him in that dominant tight end type of role.
No,
still a lot of holes on defense, still a lot of holes on the offensive line. Running back's a question mark. Like, you name it, just question marks up and down this roster.
From a just a purely like NFL marketing standpoint, I don't know, outside of watching Brady's kind of like last hurrah, like I don't know if those divisional games are going to be viewable. I don't think that the viewership is going to be there like we've seen in the past years with a Carolina Atlanta game. You're not gonna the viewership's not gonna be there. You'll see viewership for Brady games that Brady is in. NFC South, you were very close, deadly close to being the worst division in football personnel wise on paper, but Brady came and saved it, and it's really only one team that's there. So
yeah, I mean somebody had to start competing with that NFC East to try and wrestle that crowd away sooner or later. But yep, I just went there as well. So taking a little dig there at your Commanders.
Are you good today?
I'm on fire apparently. So
okay, I'm enjoying this. This is good. I like this you. Okay,
we got a little spice in these takes today. So everybody watch out.
The flame, that's what the flame's here for. I like it.
Absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and head on through and talk a little college basketball. We got Final Four heading into this weekend, and very excited for the Final Four and the men's basketball championship that'll take place this before we go live again on the Stacks on Stacks next week. But it does beg the question on a prospect coming out. He's not going to be playing this week, but it was a conversation that was a lot of fun to have on this one.
Chet Holmgren has been absolutely dominant defensively. He has 11 blocks through 2 games of the NCAA tournament. He's put up some very well-rounded stats. I want to know, though, guys, when it comes to the NBA, when it comes to these bigger, stronger, more physical bigs in the NBA, do you think Chet Holmgren can hang with them?
Obviously, he's going to need to bulk up.
Once you're in the NBA weight room and everything, you'll be fine.
There's been comparisons to his play style being somewhat similar to Kevin Garnett, a guy who's rail thin, never really put on weight in the NBA, but still was able to play with physicality.
He can be Sean Bradley.
Chet Holmgren's got everything you want in a defensive player at the 5.
The dude ain't gonna make it in the NBA.
He plays basketball. They're supposed to be rail thin. They're supposed to be flighty, run fast, jump high.
But we really haven't seen a guy his size really pay off recently.
Okay. He could play center up against me. Like, I think in the NBA it's going to take a little while to, I don't think that he's immediately going to translate. NBA game speed is completely different than college game speed. To play that position, when you're going up against like guys like Jokic, like, come on, bro. Like, I'm not gonna put out doubt because this is still a young talent, and NBA coaches and like someone said, once he hits the NBA weight room, he'll bulk up. the first season right away in the NBA, it's not going to be like, oh my gosh, like Chet Holmgren, like you're not people aren't fucking putting up posters in the air aside from his parents, like he may have to sit back, play in the G League for a little bit, and maybe after a season or two, in the G League, maybe we see him take that next step to the NBA level and be an impact player. But let the guy fill out a little bit more. Come on, guys. Like,
yeah. HoovTube over there on YouTube is chiming in there with some spicy takes as well.
Holmgren got bigger arms.
Yeah. It's one of those that with basketball and with these young players especially, right? Like there's a reason that with the NFL, they make players be 3 years removed from high school before they can declare for the draft, right? And much of that has to do with the fact that certain things happen to you physically when you go from 18 years old to 21 to 22 years old. In that range, there is so much growth and development that happens. You tend to start growing up. You tend to start filling out. When you're 7 feet tall, you haven't had much of that chance to fill out yet because you were still growing upwards so much. So there's a lot to be said there that I do think that once you get him in an NBA conditioning program, which again, like, somebody also made the mention on that stack that colleges have weight rooms and have conditioning programs. And you're right. They absolutely do. They absolutely do. But the problem is that their conditioning is to try and get you through 30 games. It's not to try and get you through 82 games, not even including the postseason with those 82 games. So there's a lot to be said about how they're going to do that. And we've seen that constantly where you see guys that, go out, it's super, super skinny, super small, and they're able to blow up there a little bit. And HoopTube, I'm just not going to display that.
That's why I made the Chris Rock face. Oh, bro, that is hilarious.
All right, fine.
Chet's going to get smacked around like he's hosting the Oscars. I love it.
So but it's one of those that you'll see him naturally fill out and naturally get bigger here over the next couple of years. And there's something to be said, right? Like you can ultimately, we've seen these guys either put on weight, lose weight, all of that kind of stuff. Like, there's a lot that can go into the conditioning to change that. But what you can't necessarily change is some of the instincts that he has, right? Like the guy knows how to position himself to block shots, stop, he's going up against big guys in college there as well, right? Like maybe not necessarily the centers that you'll see in the NBA, but he's still seeing guys that are 6'8" to 6'10", 250. Like he saw that one more than once over the season and held his own, right? The NBA guys will be bigger, but again, like there's some things that you just can't teach, and instincts being one of those things. And he's a very naturally gifted defensive player with the instincts that he possesses.
I'm not taking that away from him. That's why I said that's why I framed it up the way that I framed it. Like maybe he starts off G League, and then he gets called up. I could see that. I see that as a probable thing. Like in the NBA draft is so difficult too, because you have guys internationally that are getting drafted. I mean, it's tough. It's tough.
Let me ask you a question. So we've seen, like, there's a lot of people out there pounding the table that Chet Holmgren could very well be the first pick off the board in the NBA, right? Like, 7-footers don't come around very often, especially 7-footers that are athletic. They can shoot a 3 ball. They can block shots, that it can use both hands to block shots. Like they don't grow on trees, and they're not in every draft. So there's a lot of folks out there that would certainly put him in the discussion for the number 1 overall draft pick. Let's say that he goes number 1 overall. Name me the last number 1 pick that came off the board and just dominated in their rookie season.
Like, I don't know. No.
Like it just doesn't happen. We don't see that anymore, where you see guys truly come out with that. You see a few guys flash here or there, but they generally aren't the number 1 overall seeds or the number 1 overall picks, right? Like you look at guys like Andrew Wiggins, like finally started popping. And how long has he been in the league?
Oh gosh, a hot minute, bro.
Greg Oden, we never saw him take off. Like there's prime examples out there of guys that just never take off from that number one pick. But when it's all said and done, like he can certainly do that, and just kind of knocking him on his size there. I don't know that that's going to necessarily do that. Like I'm just kind of looking this thing up here, and just because now I'm curious. So Cade Cunningham, number 1 overall pick last year. Did he set the world on fire?
No.
This year? Nope.
No.
Anthony Edwards in 2020. I'd say that's probably a nope. Zion Williamson. Nope. Played hurt most of that year. DeAndre Ayton. I think we're still waiting to see what DeAndre Ayton truly grows into down there in Phoenix. Mikal Fultz.
Oh gosh.
Right. Like we're now.
That was awful. That was awful. Fultz was awful.
We are now 5 years back on those things. And there's not one of those guys that we go, oh, popping off the page. That was a slam dunk, smash the deal. Like if we redid the draft, they're still going number 1 type of thing. So that's what I'm trying to say is that even if he's taken number 1, like the company that he's had to compete against there from a perception standpoint the bar isn't that high. So I love HoopTube just saying Fultz on that one.
Yeah, Fultz was just that was probably when you end up in a J. Cole song and J. Cole talks about how he got drafted and they mess up his shot. Like that's bad. That's bad.
Right.
But
I'm just looking beyond that, right? Ben Simmons, Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, Anthony Bennett, Anthony Davis. Like that's your last 10 years worth of number 1 picks. And I think you can confidently say that there's 2, maybe 3 guys out there that really kind of stand out there with that number 1 pick. So just an interesting thought there. Now, it's interesting too, because we talked a little bit about this next topic here and, draft picks, teams going out and acquiring players and bringing them in, bringing coaches in, the owners of the organization, maybe getting involved in some stuff and doing some things. And when it's all said and done, right? Like, is there something out there that would make you renounce your fandom? And so that's where we're going to head here.
Jim Tomey is declining his Cleveland Browns season tickets, former baseball player Jim Tomey, in regards to the whole Deshaun Watson signing and such. This isn't so much about Deshaun, it's more so as just a broader question. What would it take for you guys to give up on your team?
So my teams are my teams, and they'll always be my teams.
That's for life.
Signing players with off-field issues that are unresolved still. I think we always care a little bit, though.
Keeping Matt Rule for another year and keeping Sam Darnold or giving him an extension. That's the only thing.
The Yankees screwing up the Aaron Judge extension.
Born and raised San Diego Charger fan. Obviously, we know they moved to LA. Still the Chargers. Still the only team I root for.
There's nothing my team can do. Born into it till the day they box me up. Go Birds.
Yo, the part with Monkey there, like that was
Go Birds.
No, the first soundbite. Oh god,
yes,
that had me. Give me 1 second. So for me, my team is under scrutiny, right now because of our owner, Daniel Schneider. I'm a fan of the team. I am not a fan of the owner. You can still be a fan of your team without being a fan of a particular player that may play on your team. Hell, I remember when the Lakers got LeBron, I was like, fuck, do I have to now, love LeBron now? Do I have to appreciate LeBron now? And as you see when we're on Stacks and any of those types of topics come up surrounding him and the other GOATs, I'm usually the person ragging on Bron. You can like your team without liking a player or liking a owner or so on and so forth. I'll always how do I say? I'll always support the Commanders no matter what. if I were a Browns fan, you know, I'd probably feel some type of way, but damn, like, why do we have this guy? But like, if you've been riding with that team, like that's been you don't know anything else. Like, what are you gonna do? Like you know, at the end of the day, it's also a business. Like, you don't control those decisions. Like, you don't work in that building. You don't work in those walls. You know, you don't own a part of the team. So it's like you gotta, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta get out there and you gotta, you know, you may not have to go to the games or attend, you know, but you can still like have a favorite team. You know what I mean?
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that's one of those that it really depends on where your convictions lie. Like, what is more important to you? What is, you know, how that comes down to it, right? On how people will ultimately look at that and view that, and through that lens, look at it. So, that being the case, like, and this topic all got brought up because of an article in USA Today surrounding Andrea Tomey, the wife of Jim Tomey, who very publicly canceled her Brown season tickets. And there was some debate on whether or not they're going to be refunded the money for what they spent on those season tickets. And in that article, she again very publicly announced that even if they do not refund her the money that they paid on those the season tickets, she would simply auction those tickets off, and every penny that went that came out of that, she would donate to several different women's charities, women's issues throughout the local you know, city of Cleveland and the
That makes sense.
And the state of Ohio there. And really just kind of speaks to what it is that person believes in, and where their convictions lie. And more power to somebody that's willing to stand behind their convictions that strongly. So yeah, for me, there's been times that teams I root for have made decisions, and personnel decisions, coaching decisions, whatever that looks like, that has me upset with the team or disappointed with the team. Now, not that I ever fully renounced my fandom with that, but at the same time too, I don't go out of my way to make it a priority to follow that along, right? Like, if it's one of those that's, there are certain times out there that I'll passively follow that along and be like, oh, they're playing, they're winning, great, okay, cool. Like, I'll be checking a score on my phone. Whereas, when that team and you really got those players, you really like those coaches, those types of things, and you're very much invested, you start making that a priority to the point where you're making sure you're home to be able to watch the game. You're going out and buying tickets to make sure that you're going to the game, seeing them in person, hitting the box office, hitting the concessions, and that kind of stuff. So, there's part of that where you don't necessarily have to renounce your fandom to not necessarily send any extra money that way as well. So one of those where your fandom can take a slight step back, I believe there. So,
when I realized that the Lakers were out of the playoffs, stopped watching, didn't care, don't care. I'm done with the team for the rest of the year. We'll see what happens next year. I'm done with the team for now.
Alrighty. Speaking of the Lakers and LeBron there, we've got a topic that always seems to kind of pop up, whether it's, is LeBron the greatest? Is this, all of these different types of things. And so the question came up, what's LeBron's legacy?
LeBron James, leading the league in scoring at 37 years old, does wonders for his legacy.
It's phenomenal, man.
This does absolutely nothing for his legacy. In fact, it actually tarnishes it a little bit. His scoring and stat padding is not leading to win.
LeBron James is averaging 30 points a game this year, and Michael Jordan had 23 after not playing for 3 years and come back as a 38-year-old.
And I don't buy the whole stat padding thing.
You really think about it, the last real prime year of LeBron James' career was 2018 when he put the Cavs on his back.
Well, I mean, at this point, if you're hating on LeBron, you're just a hater.
Don't let your love for Kobe take over your hatred for greatness and who LeBron is.
Proud LeBron sexual.
All right, Lakers fan, lead it off.
Look, I don't think that it hurts his legacy. Realistically, I kind of see where Sauce Boss is coming in with it kind of, it's hurting him because it's not leading to wins. It's hurting him for this season. LeBron can go to a fourth team and win another ring, Like, it's just he's LeBron James. The not leading to wins thing is less about LeBron and his scoring, and more about how sucky Russell Westbrook has been on that team and on that roster. The dude still he has what, 4 rings? He still got his 4. You know,
he had 2 with Miami, 1 with Cleveland, 1 with the Lakers.
That 1 with the Lakers, yeah. 3 different teams, 4 rings all across 3 different teams. Yeah, I don't necessarily hate LeBron, but I don't know if I can still put him above Jordan or Kobe yet. Like, I'm not there yet. I can cement LeBron there at 3. I can't move him above Jordan and Kobe yet. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to be a thing.
Right.
I don't know if it'll ever be a thing.
Yeah, and for some folks that's going to be the case, where they will. It doesn't matter what he does or what he doesn't do.
Yeah.
In their mind, he will never be greater than insert player here, right? And a lot of that has to do with when you kind of grew up, when you were heavily invested in the game. Right now, like, rings. I always love the rings have a lot to do with it. But if that was the case and everybody really was ring counting, Bill Russell is the GOAT, and there's no debate to it, right? Like, nothing more to that one type of thing, right? If scoring was truly the end all be all, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar would be the GOAT, and there'd be no other, conversation around that one until, right now, when LeBron will ultimately challenge that. And I do believe he will surpass him in all-time scoring there. But we've seen this play out there more than once, right? And I still hold by the fact that when we watch LeBron James play, the historic player that his game most closely resembles, how they play the game, how they view the game, it's a Magic Johnson, right?
Yeah, and he plays like Magic. Yeah.
This was not one of those that in the 90s during Jordan's heyday, and we saw that going right after Magic had retired. I don't remember any of the conversations that MJ or Magic was greater than Michael. Like, it just, it didn't happen. Right. To all of those things. And to the point where I also love the fact of, them trying to compare the eras back and forth between some of these guys. Well, we've seen
played against what competition. Right. Yeah.
We've seen LeBron's game, what it looked like in the 80s into the 90s. And it was Magic Johnson on those Lakers, right? And if you also look at it, similar career arcs, which points per game are similar, rebounds, assists, all of those things are very similar to it. And you talk about a guy that's, a big body guy that can play all 5 positions on the floor. Bingo, right? Like, again, checks a lot of boxes there. And when it's all said and done, I don't remember anybody pounding the table that Magic was the greatest of all time. He's certainly in the conversation for one of the top players ever to play the game, but nobody was willing to put him on that mountain there. So I think a lot of that still is going to hold true there. And at this point, as far as the legacy question, if you're still trying to figure out what LeBron's legacy is going to be when he's 18, 19 years into the league at this point.
Yeah. Like
there's no, you haven't been paying attention for the previous one. This last little bit there is maybe going to finish cementing it, but it's not going to really change any of it to it. It's not going to change the elevation. It's not going to do any of that stuff. The legacy at this point is fairly well written. So anyway, just kind of my thoughts there. Any other thoughts here?
No.
All righty. Let's go ahead and work our way over into some Dynasty Fantasy Football here.
Let's talk a little Dynasty Fantasy Football here. Trade offer sitting out there. I want to get y'all's takes on this. Player A would get Justin Jefferson. Player B would get Chris Godwin, the 2022 105 and the 2022 106. What side are you on? Hit me up. Let me know.
I mean, I'm probably taking the Jefferson side.
I feel like Jefferson's probably the easy answer, actually.
For me, it depends on what your team needs. If you have a ready-to-win now team and you're set everywhere, you take Jefferson, absolutely. If you're struggling, you're rebuilding, That is not a bad package to get for Jefferson.
Even if both those first-round picks hit, they're likely wide receivers.
I think it's team dependent.
Joey, I think you're right. I think the best move is to just probably hang on to that. The team is in a rebuild mode, and let's see how the draft plays out there.
I agree with what a lot of everyone was saying in that it depends on which side you're on. If you are assuming Jefferson and you are in win now, go for it, run that. If you are not in win now, if you're not on the precipice of a championship, there's no need for you to be getting Jefferson. If the rest of your team is dog shit, there's no reason for you to be getting Jefferson, right? Now on the flip side, to the other side of the coin, Chris Godwin ain't a bad consolation prize, and then those 3 picks for Justin Jefferson. If I'm the person that has Justin Jefferson, I'm sitting back and I'm like, this isn't bad. Like, I can still win with these pieces. I can still, if I need Godwin, or if I'm in the hunt, or I'm about to be in the hunt, and maybe that could add some balance to my team. I do agree that those draft picks could more than likely you're likely to be wide receivers. I feel like with this year's draft class.
Maybe a Kenneth Hall, maybe an Isaiah Spiller type of pick out there, with one of those, maybe if it slips. But you're right. You're most likely going to be looking at wide receivers there. That particular team was an orphan, and that guy needs a lot of work. That one needs a quarterback on a super flex, a running back, needs some tight ends. Like, you name it, it's a rebuild shot all the way around, to the point where it's probably trade off of those picks, trade those first rounders off again anyway, load it up and see if you can't get 2 or 3 picks, in next year's NFL draft, which is more loaded in some of that talent than what this year's draft class is going to be.
Yeah.
And see what you can do that way. But
he needs to figure out how to get some vets then. Like, he needs to get some talent,
right?
Some established guys,
Yeah, the funny thing was as well, right? Like, how often do we see folks agree on Twitter? Like, never. So ran that poll through Twitter, and it was split down the middle, 50-50.
Of course.
It was
it's a fair trade. It's a fair trade.
It tells you just how evenly of a trade that one was, and really which side that you fall on and where you need to be at. So
yeah.
All righty. Well, let's go ahead and talk some more football here, and something that both bettors and fantasy pundits will be interested in here, and that comes from our partners over at Pickup.
Yo, Stacks community, what's up? It's your boy Darnell from Pickup, and we are back with another question/prop for y'all. And it just happened not too long ago. Tyreek Hill got traded from the Kansas City Chiefs to the Miami Dolphins. My mind is blown. I don't know what to think about, but I just know this. We have a question for y'all. Who will get more touchdowns next season? Tyreek or Juju? Click that link. Play our props.
I think it's going to come down to quarterbacks who can place the ball in their hands. And I got to go with Mahomes.
Always choose talent over situation, so I'm going with Tyreek Hill.
There's no way in hell that Kansas City goes into the season with Juju as their number ones.
This one is very easily Tyreek for me.
Yeah, I've got them 1 apart in the projections. I've got Tyreek Hill with 7 and Juju with 6.
Okay. I could see that, Joey. I like what Joey kind of how we wrap that up there. It's kind of like how I said on that take on the app. If we were to live in an alternate universe, do the whole Doctor Strange, I see a scenario to where maybe Juju could have, one more TD than Tyreek, because he has the better quarterback. But to what Javar said, and what I played on Pickup, I'm taking Tyreek. I'm taking the talent over the situation. But there is an alternate universe And I don't know if we're living in it yet. We won't know until, the start of the season and the end of the season. There is an alternate universe, though, that situation could maybe outweigh that talent. We've seen talent go to a new situation before and not be the same because the scheme, the fit's not the same. Tua doesn't have the same arm as Mahomes. You're not going to convince me that Tua is as good of a quarterback as Mahomes. So that's tough, but I'm taking Tyreek.
Yeah. I'm going to take Tyreek as well. And one of the phrases constantly uttered on our show is you're only as good as the guy throwing you the ball when it's all said and done. Right. But there are exceptions to that and there are caveats to that. And I've got such a caveat for you. So Alex Smith, who we saw have a very long NFL career, several different teams, several different receiving corps, things like that. From a fantasy football perspective, Alex Smith's best year came with Tyreek Hill in it. Was 3 points per game better on average during that season than he was at any other point in his career. And Alex Smith is not a guy known for the deep ball, is a guy that's known to dink and dunk and check down. And, J.D. McKissick will certainly attest to that one, that just a dink and dunker and we'll just move the ball and keep it going that way. Doesn't really take shots down the field. Now, the other thing that is interesting to note here is I don't know. I can't think of another NFL team that has had as much speed on their wide receiver core and as good of receivers on their, couple both of those things together. We'll see teams go out there and get just absolute burners and bring them in, but typically they don't have the talent to stand alone as a wide receiver one.
Or either one guy gets injured or something. Yeah.
Right. So that being the case, this is a very interesting dynamic there. And by the way, you also brought in Raheem Mostert, who I get it. He's long in the tooth. He is still one of the fastest players in the league coming out of the backfield. And by the way, he can catch the ball and break one off from anywhere on the field. Mike Gesicki is one of the faster tight ends in the league there as well. So you've got a couple of burners that are 4-3 guys on the outside, and you cannot bracket coverage either one of those because the other guy can beat you on the other side.
They have the weapons.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with it? Like I've said before, when we discussed Tyreek Hill, last time and him going to the Dolphins, it's all about this is all about Tua. This is less about Tyreek than and more about Tua. If you can't get it done with this year with those weapons, with those guys, you got to be out of here, kid. I'm sorry. You got to ride the bench.
But I also think that the offensive changes that they'll put in there, right? Like you're bringing in Mike McDaniel, who's a disciple of the Shanahan system, right? Like
it'll cover up Tua's mistakes. It'll cover up his flaws.
Yeah, he's been indoctrinated into the Shanahan system since Mike Shanahan was the head coach back in Denver. He has just been in that system and constantly, he knows it inside and out. He's a dynamic play caller, an innovative play caller. And I think you'll see him be able to unleash Tua a little bit. Whereas, I don't know that Tua was in a system or a place where, the coordinators were really looking to necessarily do that, right? Like they were taking it slow his rookie year. You had and regardless of what anybody wants to tell me,
games.
Right. Regardless of what anybody wants to tell me about last year, when you have a coordinator at the offensive coordinator position, that gets weird because what happens when they don't have the exact same thought on that one? Which way does it really lean there? Not only that, you had a head coach seemingly that didn't want Tua around from a lot of the reports that we saw there and a lot of the things coming out there. So
reasons.
If you're a young man there that's still trying to figure out your footing and find your way, and you're playing for an organization where you don't feel wanted, it's tough to thrive and tough to succeed in an organization like that. So hopefully the change of scenery from the coaching and the aspect there and some of the new players being brought in will help him. And I think it probably does. And I think we see him take that step forward.
Tua, you got this season, this season only.
And at that point too, right? Like it's one of those that by bringing these moves in and putting these talent around him, what you've got ultimately, right? Like, whether or not that he's a guy that can lead you into the future and can be your franchise quarterback, or, hey, it's time to cut ties and we've got to go out there and get our franchise quarterback. So, another move that makes a lot of sense there. But yeah, for me, it's Tyreek, and it's Tyreek pretty easy. I'm going to take the guy that can house it from anywhere on the field, and it can be a standalone wide receiver 1 and not a guy that typically has to play out of the slot or requires a true wide receiver 1 playing opposite of him for him to be able to really do his magic and work well. So Tyreek Hill for me, it is. Cool.
In agreement.
Robbie, I think that's going to take us down here to the end of it. Any final thoughts?
Click the link in the description, download the Stacks app, make some content with us.
Let's do it. All righty. He's Rum Boys Robbie. I'm Derek from the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. This has been Stacks on Stacks. Have a good one. Be safe.